to the war in Ukraine now, where Moscow and Kyiv exchanged several waves of attacks over the weekend. Officials say Russia launched airstrikes across Ukrainian cities, including on a blood transfusion center in the Kharkiv region, while Kyiv says it hit 2 bridges in occupied territories on Sunday and targeted Russia's Black Sea fleet. Meanwhile, on the ground, Ukraine's military commander-in-chief says its troops' defensive lines are stable amidst the fighting as they continue to fend off Russian advances. Well, to unpack all that, let's bring in Dr. Samuel Ramani, Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, who joins us now from London. Dr. Ramani, quite an exchange of attacks over the weekend. Let's first talk about Ukraine's attacks on Russia, namely the Black Sea Fleet. What can you tell us about that?
I think that was a major attack on the Black Sea Fleet. It was the largest attack that we've seen really since the Moscow sinking that occurred in 2022. And it was likely done with Ukrainian-originated drone and military technologies. That's quite significant. Even more crucially, the attack was launched on Novorossiysk. And Novorossiysk is a safe harbor for Russian forces, Russian ships. In fact, Russian ships moved from Sevastopol and Crimea deeper into Russian territory in Novorossiysk precisely to avoid attacks of this kind. So this was a real humiliation for the Russians.
And of course, Russian forces are continuing its own airstrike campaign across Ukraine. Can we say that Russia is still specifically targeting civilian infrastructure?
Well, Russia is continuing to target civilian infrastructure. It's not as coordinated as it was between October and December of last year when General Sergei Surovikin was at the helm, and they were targeting mostly power grids and electrical supplies. Now they seem to be launching attacks on infrastructure, real estate, civilian areas just to cause terror and panic. But there is that consistent dimension. And probably it's aimed at preventing any kind of investment into Ukraine or any kind of reconstruction of Ukraine from really taking foot.
And of course, Ukraine has so far recaptured several villages in the south and around Bakhmut. But from what we can gather, it's yet to claim a major breakthrough across some heavily defended Russian lines. Give us an idea of how Ukraine's counteroffensive is shaping up.
Well, Ukraine's counteroffensive has been somewhat disappointing, at least from the high standards that were set by the September 2022 liberation of Kharkiv, followed by the November 2022 expulsion of Russia from Kherson. And that's because of the depth of Russia's fortifications on the front lines. You've got dragon's teeth trenches. You've got also anti-tank and landmines that have been put through, and that really slows Ukraine's progress. And when Ukraine is slow and it's trying to figure out where to enter, the Russians have advantages in terms of air power, and they can launch attack helicopters from behind the horizon and weaken Ukrainian positions further. Cluster munitions are helping the Ukrainians, but it's not enough to close the gap. And that's why until Ukraine gets the air power that it needs, it's probably going to be a slow, painful grind.
And just lastly, if you will, there were talks held in Saudi Arabia over the weekend on the war, and a senior Ukrainian official has called it a huge blow to Russia. How significant were these talks, and did anything interesting come out of them?
Well, I think it's interesting to see that there were also non-Western countries that were at a conference and championing Ukraine's territorial integrity. I mean, this conference in Jeddah was the second one after the one in Copenhagen, and it's likely to lead to a global Ukraine summit. That could include India, Brazil, as well as China. Chinese envoy Li Wei was actually a surprise attendee at this summit, but I think he was trying to market China's global security initiative, which you saw them broker between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and create some distance from rumors that China is supplying Russia with dual-use military equipment or even uniforms.
All right, Dr. Samuel Ramani from RUSI, thank you very much for your analysis.